Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Lower Providence Township Board of Supervisors for Thursday, September 1st, 2016. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Good evening, Deb. Would you please call the roll?
Pleasure. Mr. Sergini.
Sorry, here.
Ms. Ekman.
Here.
Mr. Duffy.
Here.
Mr. McFarland. Here. Ms. Zimmerman.
Here.
Prior to the meeting this evening, an informational session was held to discuss upcoming improvements to the Crawford Road, Park Avenue, and Eagleville Road intersection. First item on the agenda this evening is the consent agenda consisting of the minutes of the Board of Supervisors from August 18th and also fiscal matters as listed on the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board? From the audience? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2 on the agenda includes presentations, and our first two presentations are to two of our township employees for their years of service. So I'd like to begin by calling up Michael Nestor, please. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors, I'd like to thank you for your 10 years of service to Lower Providence Township. Lower Providence is truly a family, and the residents of Lower Providence thank you for all of the good work that you've done for us, and we look forward to many years to come. So thank you very much. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I just want to say a few words about Mike as well. Some of it will be familiar from 5 years ago when you were in here, but Mike is one of our top people around here. No disrespect to anybody else, but any job he takes it with a smile, whether it's, you know, emptying the trash cans or putting new locks on the bathroom so the police don't have to unlock them anymore. Playing to the crowd here, but everything that Mike does, he does it to the best of his ability. Like I mentioned, recently we just installed new locks. We redid the bathroom buildings out back. Mike had his hands in both of those. He really cares about the people of Lower Providence, and he cares about the people he works with, whether it's in the Parks Department or in the township in general. So if you're ever having a bad day, find Mike and go talk to him, and you'll feel much better about yourself. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank God for the health and the strength that he provides for me. Second of all, thank you, Carl, for the kind words. And also I want to thank my wife, Christina, my daughter, Christina, and my granddaughter, Tori Ray, for all the love and support, which makes it all worthwhile. I want to thank everybody that I work with at the township, here, Park and Recs, Public Works, Police Department, great bunch. And I pray that I'm healthy and can give you many more years. Thank you.
To call up Officer Matthew Barber now, please. Hey, Matt, how's it go? Good, how are you? Good to see you. some information to read on Matt. Officer Matthew Barber is a 2001 graduate of Souderton Area High School. He earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice from Westchester University in December of 2006 and graduated from the Montgomery County Police Academy in September of 2007. He began his law enforcement career as a part-time police officer with the North Wales Borough Police Department in December of 2008. In April of 2010, he was hired as a police officer with the University of Pennsylvania Police Department, where he served until his appointment with the Lower Providence Township Police Department on August 4th of 2011. Officer Barber was assigned to the Patrol Division and has been awarded a Commendation for Bravery in 2011 and a Commendation of Merit in 2013. Effective this week, Officer Barber has been assigned to the School Resource Officer position at the Arcola Intermediate School. Officer Barber, congratulations and thank you for your 5 years of service to Lower Providence Township. For you, sir.
I don't know if I can follow what Carl just said, but Matt, it's been a great 5 years. I'm looking forward to see what you can do at the intermediate school. I think it fits you well, your personality. I think you've shown that in the Junior Police Academy, which Matt was instrumental in getting going. He came to me a couple years ago and said, hey, what do you think? I said, hey, sounds great. Have fun, go for it. And he's done fantastic with that. So I think the school resource officer position is made for you. I think you're going to do well, and I look forward to seeing how you handle that over the next few months. Congratulations.
Again, thank you very much, Mike and Matt, for your years of service to Lower Providence Township. And thanks for coming out tonight. Item 2C on our agenda is a presentation by Charles Friedlander of Municipal Finance Partners on the 2017 minimum municipal obligation. Good evening, Chuck. How are you?
Hello? Okay. I have to follow a baby? Oh, that's... Just to reintroduce myself to those of you who I've seen before and those of you who haven't, I'm Chuck Friedlander. I'm a consulting actuary, president and chief actuary, Municipal Finance Partners. I'm a fellow of the Society of Actuary, a member of the American Academy of Actuaries, an enrolled actuary, and I'm approved to practice under the Pennsylvania retirement law for municipal retirement plans. My general areas of expertise are municipal pensions and OPEB benefits. What I do, I prepare the actuarial valuation reports every other year for the township's pension plans, assist with the preparation of the MMO, which we'll talk about today, and the AG 385, which is how you get state aid. I prepare reports and provide information to the auditors for your financial statements. And when people terminate and retire, I calculate the benefits they're entitled to, and miscellaneous consulting along the way. All of this information is based on the most recent actuarial valuation of 1/1/2015. If fuller information about the actuarial assumptions, methods, data is within that report. If you need a copy of the report, I'm sure Jerry can find that, and the report also contains my qualifications to provide this information, required disclosure information. The philosophy behind funding your retirement plan is, first of all, to follow Act 205. Act 205 is the municipal funding law that was passed by the state of Pennsylvania in 1984. But even with these rules, there are plans that have gotten poorly funded due to benefit increases and losses. Without these rules, of course, it can get even worse, and you need to look no further than our state pension plans to see what happens when you don't fund your liabilities. Basically, what drives this is the concept of intergenerational equity, which means that your officers and employees that are earning benefits under the plan are being paid out of funds generated by current taxpayers out of your current budget. Therefore, the benefits they earn during the period they're working should be funded by today's taxpayers and not passed along to their children and grandchildren. So this is the history of the police minimum municipal obligation. The MMO is basically three parts: the normal cost, which is the regular annual cost of the plan, the administrative expenses, and these include investment expenses, and amortization payments. And as you can see, the green piece, the amortization payment, grew quite a bit as we recognized the impact of the market downturn of 2008. You see the same sort of pattern for the non-uniform plan, and those costs have been moderating lately because we've had better investment years. A couple of other things are helping. The police contributions are going from 2 to 3% of pay next year, and the non-uniform contributions are going to go from 0.75% this year to 1% next year and 1.5% the year after. So the members are picking up a slightly bigger piece. If you look at the history of the funded percentage, again, you can see that the police pension plan was fully funded before the market downturn. And as we recognize the downturn, we fell to about 77% in 2013, and now we're headed back up in the right direction. You see the same pattern for the non-uniform plan, and again, it had a much better year in terms of liabilities, and in 2015, they're actually over 90% funded. So bottom line, the market downturn took a hit, which was spread out over years because how we smooth the asset values. The 2015 valuation had a small decrease, about $32,000 in the amortization, offset by about $18,000 in normal costs. So the cost dropped about $14,000, $15,000 a year. The non-uniform, we had a increase in the normal cost. And again, normal costs increase as people get closer to retirement. That increase is about 30, but the decrease in the amortization was about 60. So we have about 30 savings in the non-uniform plan too. This is based on if we had done the 2017 MMOs based on the 13 valuation and the 15. Of course, you can't do it based on the 13, but I just wanted to show the impact. The MMO is determined by taking the normal cost and administrative expense percentage from the prior valuation and applying it to the expected payroll for this year. And that was estimated by the township finance folks. Susan, really. And to that, we add the amortization, we subtract the member contribution, and we come up with the minimum municipal obligation. For the police plan, it's $757,061. For the non-uniform plan, we go through the same process, applying payroll to these percentages, adding in the amortization, subtracting out the member contributions, and the MMO is $257,187. Now, employees hired, non-uniform employees hired after 2001, 2002 and later, are in a defined contribution plan for which the employer contribution is 8% of their pay. So based on what we expect 2017 payroll to be, the MMO for the non-uniform defined contribution plan is $102,757. Now, all of those obligations are the township's responsibility. However, the state gives you aid every year, and basically it's based on foreign, which means out-of-state, fire and casualty insurance sold in Pennsylvania has a 2% tax. And this money is divided up between the pension plans and volunteer firemen. And we had a nice increase. The unit value increased from about $3,900 in 2015 to $4,374.6462 per unit in 2016. That's going to increase, and again, a unit is one non-uniformed employee, active employee, and 2 units for every uniformed policeman. So you get a little more, so you get twice as much state aid for police officers than you do for non-uniformed people. So the township obligation is going to increase, or township allocation state aid, assuming is going to increase from 321,508 last year to 358,000 this year. So you're going to get 37,000 more from the state than you would have expected, and assuming that persists for next year, if the unit value doesn't change, you'll get about the same next year to offset the MMOs we've talked about. So the net township obligation was about 776,000 last year. It's going to drop to about 752,000. I mean, for 16, it's going to drop to about 752,000 for 2017. So what's coming up? Well, at 1/1/2017, we're going to do a brand new actuarial evaluation. And it's going to recognize changes in participants. It's going to recognize the investment performance from 1/1/2015 to 1/1/2017. 2017 has been pretty good to date, but 2015 was a flat year. We didn't have very much investment return, may have even been slightly negative. So we're going to have to, unless we have big gains between now and the end of the year, we're going to be picking up some losses. Okay, that's going to affect the MMO for 2018 or 19, depending on when we complete the valuation compared to the MMO time. So it's going to reflect those investment return. It's going to reflect changes in members. It's also going to probably reflect changes in actuarial assumptions. I am not comfortable with the 8% investment return assumption and have been working with the township to try to change that for a number of years, and I think this is the time we're going to have to get that done. Any questions?
Couple of them, if I might. Just starting with your 8% projection for gain, I would certainly agree that that's aggressive. What would be a comfort number for you, just as a general
Well, I'm
statement?
comfortable between 6 and 7.
You are. Okay.
Okay. Again, it depends upon your investment allocation. The more equity you have, the more risks you take, the more volatility you're going to have. But that's also going to lead to higher returns. I have
For example, though, 2015 did not return 8%. Even
right.
though
2015 was a bad year. The whole market went
and
down.
so the 2 years combined, 15 and 16, likely won't combine to be 8% either.
Probably not.
Yeah. So a lower target would be a more, and if I can back up, if you could just go back, you don't have to go back to the slide, but the amortization portion of the payments, is that in simple terms the amount of money that's needed to restore the balance fund that's needed? In terms
Right.
of that
Right.
account?
That's the amount to fund the actual accrued liability.
Yeah. So the more the differential that takes place as a result of perhaps of investment lack of gains, the higher that number would go
Right.
over time.
Right.
Okay. So the risk then would be, although our percents of funding are pretty good right now in terms of percent of total,
Right.
The risk we would face going forward would be more with regard to investments coming short of the allocated numbers
Right.
and requiring increased cash payments from the township going forward.
Right. Although lowering the interest rate is going to increase your contributions, but then you won't be subject to the same sorts of potential losses.
Right.
It's as far as pension funding goes, it's all a pay me now or pay me later thing. And again, it's not so much to get the lowest contribution each year, and people that budget hate to hear me say this, but it's better to have something predictable. From year to year, that's not going to keep increasing because you're kicking the can down the road.
Right. No, I agree. I agree.
The end of the road comes. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just to piggyback on that, though, generally speaking, given our current funding status and also looking at the MMOs for each plan, would you characterize our plans as healthy at this point?
Healthy is a relative term.
It is.
They're better than they were, 2 and 4 years ago. You're in better shape than there are a lot of plans that are really in poor shape. Some are funded as low as 50%. Okay, and that's the kind of hole that's kind of hard to dig out of. But when you're 80 to 90% is okay. 90% and better is let's not worry about these. We're getting there. But there's a concept called actuarial soundness that the actuarial standards don't define, because it can mean anything depending on the context. But the soundness really depends upon the ability of the township to meet the obligations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you all very much for having me here.
Thanks for coming out tonight, Chuck. We appreciate it. Okay, moving on to new business. Item 3A is consideration of a resolution approving the preliminary final land development plan of S-16-16, the road tract at 222 Collegeville Road, Micklin LLC. And Peter has information on the resolution.
Yes, my office has prepared a resolution granting preliminary/final plan approval for this two-lot subdivision. This matter was discussed at your last meeting. I believe the biggest issue at the last meeting had to do with some fees in lieu of. Those fees have been nailed down. If you look, I believe your resolution hopefully has them in there.
It does.
So you can see that the fee in lieu of for a waiver of road widening, curbs, stormwater improvements is $1,980, while the fee in lieu of for the replacement trees is $4,950. Since this was fully discussed at the last meeting, unless you have questions, I don't see any reason to discuss it again. What I'm looking for is, I believe, a vote on each of the waivers and then a vote to approve the resolution.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. As you said, I do believe those were the only questions that had come up at our last meeting. Does the board have any questions?
I just have a question on, then, Tim, you were able to go out and the tree number?
We did go out and count trees over 6 inches in caliper in the development area. There was a lot of very small kind of secondary growth in there, but there were about 15 substantial trees in the development area.
Okay.
Would anyone on the board like to take the waivers separately, or are you comfortable voting on the resolution, including all three waivers? Is there comfort? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the resolution for the preliminary final land development plan of S-16-16, the road tract at 222 Collegeville Road, including the three identified waivers?
Make that motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any additional questions or comments from the board? From the audience? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And I believe that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Item 3B, consideration of a resolution approving PADEP Act 537 planning module submission for Audubon Square 5. Mr. Woodrow has some information about that.
I do.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, good evening. So Pennsylvania Act 537, if you're familiar, is legislation that says municipalities have to maintain a plan to protect public health, safety, and welfare with regard to the proper handling of sewage. And there are some exemptions to that planning process if we have an ability to claim that there's no projected overloads in our system for a 5-year planning horizon. With the Audubon Square 5 project and the fact that they discharge into the Mine Run Interceptor where there are some capacity issues, DEP requires that a full planning module be reviewed, prepared, resolved, and forwarded to them for their further execution. So tonight we have received a package from the developer which outlines a great number of research papers and narratives and flow characteristics in our system, combines them into a concise form, and we are then would ask you folks tonight to resolve to adopt a resolution to pass that information on to DEP and suggest that they can approve Audubon Square 5 Shopping Center for approval and connection to the sewer system. A lot of paperwork, a lot of, I'll hold my thoughts for later time, but anyway, it's a task we need to do this evening to move that project along.
Thank you, Tim, and I think it's worth noting, actually, that any development that we have that goes through the Mine Run Interceptor is subject to this, and our sewer authority has been working for several years now to remediate this issue and to go through and to fix some of the I&I issues that have existed in the lines, and has done a phenomenal job with that. But, you know, the last time that they applied to DEP to sort of lift this restriction at this point, it did not go through. So at the moment, we continue with any development that goes through the interceptor having to deal with this, with the 537.
That is correct. Very well stated.
Thank you very much, sir.
For any residents that have had the sewer authority come out and check their sewers, this is the reason why.
Yeah, absolutely. Any comments from the board? Okay, is there a motion to approve the resolution approving PA DEP Act 537 planning module submission for Audubon Square 5?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions or comments from the board? From the audience? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3C, consideration of application process and associated fees for the Delaware Valley Insurance Trust, commonly known as DIVIT, and Jerry Golis has information on that. Good evening, Ms. Golis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the last few months, staff has been working with various insurance brokers, our incumbent, a new broker, as well as DIVIT, Delaware Valley Insurance Trust, as we move forward with the renewal process for the workers' compensation coverage, as well as our property and casualty. As you're aware, for the past 2 years, we have had our health and dental insurance with DIVIT with excellent results. What we'd like to do is move forward and obtain a quote from DIVIT for the workers' comp and the property and casualty, which would be our auto, our liability, property, et cetera, police liability also. But DIVIT requires application fees, and that's why this request is before the board this evening. To apply to the Workers' Comp Trust, they are asking for a $250 application fee, and for the Property and Casualty Trust, a $1,000 application fee. The only time they will keep that application fee is if we, the township, reject their proposal. If they deny our proposals and say, you know what, we just can't offer you coverage at this time, they'll refund that application fee. Or if they offer us a proposal, we accept it, then they'll apply that application fee toward our premium. But there is some level of risk involved. If we do obtain a better quote from another carrier and we reject DIVIT's proposal, we will not receive that application fee back. Having said that, that's for full disclosure, and I know most of the board members are aware of that, but we are optimistic that we will receive very competitive rates from DIVIT, as well as perhaps be able to take advantage of multi-trust discounts by being members of different trusts within their organization. When their proposal comes in, if we move forward with DIVIT in this process, staff would do a very comprehensive evaluation of the coverage, the value-added benefits, and the premiums associated with DIVIT coverage versus our current commercial carriers and any carriers that this new broker may be presenting to the township. But at this point this evening, I'm requesting authorization to incur the cost with these application fees. It's a little different process than perhaps we're accustomed to.
Jerry, you've done excellent work with this over the last couple of years, and you were instrumental in bringing us to DIVIT the first time around, and yeah, we've certainly, it's proved very fruitful. Our increases have been much less than what they would have been otherwise, so very much appreciate that. Comments from the board? Okay, is there a motion to approve the application process and associated fees for the Delaware Valley Insurance Trust?
Make that motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions or comments from the board? From the audience? Once again, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3D, consideration of reappointment of student representatives to the Parks and Recreation Board, and Carl Lukens is here. Good evening, Carl.
Thank you. Good evening. Yes, you have a memo in your packet outlining it. Basically, last year, we changed the process for the terms of the student representatives to one-year terms. That way, both the student could opt out if they wanted to, or if they were not meeting their obligations, the board could not bring them back. So at this point, we have 2 members, a voting member and an alternate, whose terms both ended in August. We're looking to get reappointed. The park board has highly recommended both of them. So we're just looking for a motion there. And then the other thing that we would need from the board too is to determine who would be the voting member and who would be the alternate. Currently, Ryan Bile is the voting member and Kelly Holloman is the alternate. They're both seniors this year. And they both do outstanding work, so you won't go wrong with whoever you choose.
So Ryan has already had an opportunity to be the voting member.
Yes, he was it this year.
Okay. You've always done an excellent job with this, Carl. You come with great candidates every year. We could use some candidates for our own student rep. As you can see, the seat is unfilled up here. Any thoughts from the board?
No, just a question. Is there any particular, between voting and non-voting in terms of participation? Is there any significance to that in terms of giving it to someone else in order to give them another experience they didn't get previously?
Right. Now, the only difference is if both student reps are there, we already have one student rep that is still current. If they're both there, then the alternate would not get the vote, but they participate whether they're voting or not. So the only difference really is for the resume, I would think. But both of these kids, they don't need this for their resumes. They're fantastic kids.
Ryan had a chance this year to be the voting member. Thoughts on maybe switching that and letting Kelly be the voting member this year, perhaps?
Sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah, I would agree. Let's let her have an opportunity to be the voting member. Thank Ryan for his value in that regard, and give Kelly the chance.
Okay, then do we have a motion to reappoint Ryan Beal and Kelly Hallman as the student reps to the Parks and Recreation Board, with Kelly being the voting member this year?
Make that motion.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. Any additional questions or comments from the board or audience? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. And item 3E, discussion of the 2007 budget meeting schedule, and Allison Rudolph has some.
It's that time of year again. When we begin work on the budget, the staff has been hard at work at it. Each of the departments have submitted their requests, and we're putting that all together now for your review. We'd like to do it a little bit different this year and allow the department heads an opportunity to meet with you individually, discuss their programs and how they're doing and how their recommendations may impact their request for next year, as well as give you an opportunity to question them about what they're doing and how maybe sometimes spending money can save you money in the long run. And I've asked each of them to look at that, at their operations, so that they can come in prepared to discuss that with you. So we'd like to suggest that instead of incorporating it with another meeting, that we hold it on a separate night, and would suggest to you that you consider Thursday, October the 13th. And if we can start a little bit early, that should allow us to meet with the department heads and then review their requests and make some recommendations ultimately to begin to finalize the budget.
Thank you, Allison. I think we were looking at 5 o'clock, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a motion to advertise October 13th at 5 p.m. as the first of our budget meetings for the upcoming fiscal year?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion, and I think a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Question. Questions or comments from anyone on the board or in the audience? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, rather, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, announcements. The Park and Rec Board will be meeting on September 13th at 7 p.m. Sewer Authority the following evening on the 14th at 7:30 p.m. And coming up quickly, just a month from now, the Township's Fall Festival will be held on Saturday, October 1st from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. right here at Eagleville Park. More information can be found on the events and happenings page of the township website at www.lowerprovidence.org. Comments and other business. Any comments from the board? Solicitor or manager?
None.
Staff? Okay. Courtesy of the floor. Okay. Before we adjourn, I need to announce that the board will be re-entering executive session to discuss a personnel matter. We do not intend to re-adjourn into a public session this evening. At this time, I'll call for a motion to adjourn. Motion and a second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Aye, opposed. Motion carries. Our next meeting will be held on September 15th. Thanks for coming out this evening. Please drive home safely.